And we are going to start off with Ronda Rousey, who issued an apology on Friday for an incident that, well, first of all, were you aware of this when it happened involving Ronda Rousey? This the sharing of the Sandy Hook conspiracy video that happened in 2013 that she
So
shared this.
I don't think I was aware when it happened, but like in the years afterwards, certainly I think when Ronda became a bit more prominent on professional wrestling television, it would just get brought up pretty much all the time. So I would say it's sort of one of those things that has stuck with her for quite a while. But I don't think I knew at the time. No.
Yeah, I remember, I'm pretty sure I remember seeing the tweet when it was made. It was a retweet of a conspiracy video attached to Sandy Hook, which was the massacre that occurred in Connecticut in December of 2012. About 21 children were killed among those at Sandy Hook. Just one of the darkest stories, I think, in American history when it comes to, public shooting. And one of these, unfortunately, there were all of these conspiracies mainlined by Alex Jones, who has been brought to justice through the families that have sued him over the years, and he's been liable for hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, Ronda Rousey had shared this video in 2013, so this would have been after she had already been brought into the UFC post Strikeforce. So this is not at a time when there was no spotlight on Ronda. In fact, there was quite a big spotlight on her. But as she'll note in this apology, this is something that I would state that people that follow her career at a decent level would probably be aware of this, because it is something that is brought up every now and then. But I wouldn't say it's been this giant story attached to her. I think you really have to do some digging probably if you are searching for this. And I would say this has not really harmed Ronda Rousey and her celebrity during all of this, but it kind of came to a head as she's doing this promotion for this Kickstarter for a comic book that she is developing. And she was going to do an Ask Me Anything on Reddit the other day. And the questions, she got flooded with questions of people bringing up the Sandy Hook video that she shared. And I guess that was kind of the tipping point for her to finally address this. And I won't read the whole thing. The whole thing can be read on Ronda Rousey's X account, but a few of the points she makes. I can't say how many times I've redrafted this apology over the last 11 years, how many times I've convinced myself it wasn't the right time, or that I'd be causing even more damage by giving it. But 11 years ago, I made the single most regrettable decision of my life. I watched the Sandy Hook conspiracy video and reposted it on Twitter. I didn't even believe it, but was so horrified at the truth that I was grasping for an alternative fiction to cling to instead. I quickly realized my mistake and took it down, but the damage was done. By some miracle, it seemingly slipped under the media's radar. I was never asked about it, so I never spoke of it again, afraid that calling attention to it would have the opposite of the intended effect. It could increase the views of those conspiracy videos and selfishly inform even more people I was ignorant, self-absorbed, and tone-deaf enough to share one in the first place. I drafted a 1,000th apology to include in my last memoir, but my publisher begged me to take it out, saying it would overshadow everything else and do more harm than good. So I convinced myself that apologizing would just reopen the wound for no other reason than me selfishly trying to make myself feel better, that I would hurt those suffering even more and possibly lead more people down the black hole of conspiracy bullshit by it being brought up again, just so I could try to shake the label of being a Sandy Hook truther. She goes on to state that I apologize that this came 11 years too late, but to those affected by the Sandy Hook massacre, from the bottom of my heart and depth of my soul, I'm so sorry for the hurt I caused. I can't even begin to imagine the pain you've endured, and words cannot describe how thoroughly remorseful and ashamed I am of myself for contributing to it. I've regretted it every day of my life since, and will continue to do so until the day I die. And she goes on to just kind of denounce those that fall into these, this rabbit hole of conspiracies that have real consequences when they are spread, especially by prominent people, and the hurt that it can cause. So this was a big focus today because when Ronda Rousey says something, it's going to have a lot of traction in the wrestling world, in the MMA space, and just in general entertainment. Like, that's the level of celebrity she is still at. And I guess everyone, can have their reactions to this, of whether you accept an apology from Ronda Rousey, whether you don't. But I do feel like it's something that I can see a lot of people of her stature in this situation that would not go out of their way to do this. That would just keep it buried and just ignore it because of the reasons of not wanting to put all that. Today, there are all these more people that are now aware of this and attaching her to this. So, I mean, to each his own, but I think the fact that it took 11 years, but I'm glad that she did this and put this out. And I think we should be able to look at people and have that ability that she was, this was 11 years ago. She's a mother now. I'm certain that she probably is, I don't know Ronda Rousey, but, it came across as this was not some PR exercise from her today. I think if she was trying to convey sincerity, I think that did resonate with a lot of people, at least the reaction I saw today.
Yeah, that seems to match the reaction I've seen too. And I find all of this to be very unusual these days. The fact that somebody could make an apology for something and have people seemingly unanimously accept it. I find that actually really rare. It seems like these days, if we've kind of made up our mind on somebody, it tends to stick with that person, even at some often, seeing attempts at apologies. I think those are met with like a lot of judgment and sometimes criticisms and considerations of like whether or not those people have ulterior motives. So it takes really like a really well written and delivered apology in order to, I think, convince a very critical, audience that you mean it. And I think this was one of those. I think it was a really well drafted and contrite, a statement from her. And I think she deserves to be commended for it. Now we still have to, say that it would be best if she never did any of this to begin with. But the fact that she was able to own up to something that, we can agree, like, maybe she didn't have to, and was able to do it this way shows that I think there's hopefully room still for anybody out there who might have done wrong in the past and been publicly shamed for it, that they could still admit fault and that they can be accepted for wrongdoing in the past and growing from it. So again, for her to be able to achieve that from what I've seen, with the reactions that I've seen, I think is pretty remarkable. So it also shows like, the difference between an apology like this and I think the types of apologies we've heard from people like Hulk Hogan, which have not come close at all to anything like this. And these are different things. But when we're talking about like public apologies and when we're talking about public opinion here,
people that you don't know on a personal basis, and you're kind of you're reacting in many ways to the image of this person in a lot of instances and what is projected to a wide audience. And you're trying to be able to detect sincerity, which is going to vary by person to person.
Yeah, and I've never seen somebody like Terry Bollea come close to achieving this. And now we see his true colors anyway. So
those were the beers talking.
Sure, yeah. Maybe the beers wrote the apologies too. Yeah, I don't know. But like I'd buy this from Ronda. Listen, it's not even my apology to accept. It's, the families of the victims to really accept. And hopefully maybe we hear from some of those, maybe not. But what we can speak to is the court of public opinion and what I think, what we sense the audience may feel. And from the reception I've seen, it seems like people are willing to accept this apology, and perhaps they're willing to move on from this aspect of her that occasionally still gets brought up.
Yeah, I think that there is something to be said for the fact that, a lot of times when you see apologies, like even when they are sincere ones, it usually is because there has also been some penalty this person is paying, that there is going to be some impact on their living, on their like a role with a company. That's not the case in this one. Like, Ronda Rousey had a stellar career in the UFC. She had big years with WWE, and she's going to continue to be a celebrity. And if she had just avoided this Reddit controversy the other day, like that's not going to be anything that drags her down. I don't think this promotes her book, her Kickstarter. Like, I don't see her, like, there is, to me, more potential damage for her by shining such a big spotlight, because as she mentioned, like, this is nothing like this has come up in these mainstream interviews. And she's actually out there doing some media right now. And this almost, you have to ask her about this if you're, doing an interview with her now, and she's going to have to address this. So again, like, some people are not going to be as receptive. It's like anything with Sandy Hook. It's pretty goddamn heinous. But I think
I don't even think it like seems to like set any sort of path for her to come back to pro wrestling or anything, because I don't think this was ever an issue for the WWE. No. Maybe her comments about like Bruce Pritchard are enough to let the world know that she's not actually interested in coming back. I don't know. Tony Khan was happy to accept her, so I don't think that would like, I just don't sense this was done for at least the professional wrestling avenue.
I don't think, like, honestly, like, you can call me naive. Like, I don't think there was any ulterior motive other than someone that was, like, clearly guilt-ridden over this and wanted to put it in her last book as well. So, I mean, I'm someone that, I mean, when it comes to, like, there are actions that are, irredeemable, but I feel people that make mistakes, if they can show a growth in themselves, I think we should be able to have an open mind towards those people being able to look back at their mistakes and identify them as such if they're being sincere about it. So, that was, quite a big story today with Ronda Rousey. I would say the biggest story today.
If you like this video, consider joining our Patreon, the Post Wrestling Cafe. Multiple bonus podcasts every week, ad-free shows, and access to our full archive. Otherwise, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.